welcome to Women's Wealth, the podcast with me, Joanne. My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower you all to step into your own life of wealth. That feeling of being so rich in your mind, body, and soul. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get straight into it. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're listening to this, welcome. How are you all? My name is Joanne. This is my podcast, Joanne Wealth. And today, I'm going to start with a little shameless plug. If you always listen to my podcast, thank you. But why not go over to my YouTube channel, type in Joanne Wealth, and check out the video version, the recorded version. I made 2024 the year where I stepped out of my comfort zone and started to post the recordings of my podcasts and other videos. And I decided only a couple of weeks ago to push myself a little bit more, start to share a little bit more about my life, what I do, a little bit more vlog, I guess. Still keeping it wellness based, still keeping it wealth based, being rich in your health and your well-being. But just how I navigate myself through life as someone who I would say has life experience, I'm not 21, I've done things, I've been to places, I've been through and experienced things that I've been able to learn from. So hopefully being able to inspire you just by showing how I navigate through life. And we're all nosy. We all like to see what people get up to. So check out those videos as well. It'd be much appreciated. And if you do, please like and subscribe, as every single like and subscription really does mean the world to me. I'm a very, very small channel in the grand scale of YouTube, and I would love just to, have that growth. I really want to focus there so I can reach more people. So thank you in advance for doing that. And today's podcast is, I hope you liked the last one where I went through the conspiracies. Let me know if you haven't already. So I'm recording this before I've actually, that one's live. Let me know. Let me know if you like it when I pick a topic like that and we chat about it. Today, similar, same but different. So today I'm going to be focusing on an amazing book that I listened to a few years ago. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you see me glancing down, I've just got my notes here because there's a lot. I literally went through, I have the Kindle version of the book. I listened to the book, but then I got the Kindle version when I was inspired to do the podcast on this. So I've bookmarked loads of things. So I'm just going to make my way through those and obviously just chat. We'll have a chat about it as we go. So the book is called Invisible Women, and it's by Caroline Perez. And it's a really amazing book. So it's not your typical, we live in a man's world, we hate men, we hate the patriarchy. It's not that. It's science, fact-based, statistic-based, and she gives the facts and the stats and explains a little bit as to why we do live in this male-dominated world. But also at the same time, instead of coming from it from a point of view of, feminism and toxic feminism and trying to, push things and change things, having that understanding of, okay, this is how this works and this is why I might find this difficult, and offering some alternatives. Because a lot of the ways in the world that I'm going to use the word suffer, or we're affected by the gender data gap, is just historical. It's just how things have grown throughout time. Even the way in which we talk about early man. We say early man. We don't ever, put in early man and women. We talk about cavemen, and we talk about the existence of man, and it's just the way that it's linguistics there, and it's just what we're used to. But then there is, and I'll go through the areas in the world that we do have this. So the way that things are designed, the way that even our cars, women are, I think that it's, without looking, 47% of women are more likely to be injured in a car accident than men, and that's purely because the way that our cars are designed are based on the average sized man. So not the average sized human, but the average sized man. And the reason that I was actually inspired to do the podcast on this book this week is from my own experience of going to the gym. And I was in a HIIT class, and I don't know the technical names for all the device, the things, the machines, but where they keep the weights and all of you can lift the bench up, so the weight bench, and you can move it up. Yeah, so we had to do that. We had to move it up to do one of the exercises. And I just looked around, and all of the women were struggling, not because the weights were too heavy. You pick your own weights, because of the size of the bench. So the way that we had to sort of position ourselves was chin on top, feet around the bench, and then feet on the floor. But I was 5'5", and I was struggling I am 5'5". I was struggling to have my chin on the top and keep my feet on the floor. My feet were kind of floating because I was a little bit too short, and my shoulders weren't quite wide enough. So it was really hurting because it was kind of hitting my arms rather than my shoulders being around, if that makes sense. My chest wasn't wide enough, basically. And that's because these machines are not designed with, this one is for people who are 5'5" and, small. This one is for 6 foot, blah, blah, blah. They're all just one size fits all, and that is the male size. And that is applicable to a lot of things in our world. And this is what this book covers and shares the stats, the facts, and how it can affect women from toilets and women queuing in toilets, and why there's always a queue for women in women's toilets, and how that can affect. So toilets, you might think, oh, well, it's just a thing, women, we queue. But the reason is because when people have designed buildings where there needs to be male and female toilets, they haven't taken into a fact that women take longer, because they're more likely to take a child. They may be menstruating, so that takes longer. Women are more likely to be carers, so they will take somebody with them for that reason. Men also have the urinals. So if there's a toilet, if there's facilities and there's 5 women and 5 men, there's going to be 10, because the men have urinals, so they're in and out. So that is just the way that, we take that. Women queue, but we never think why. And it's because of those reasons. And when they've designed the building, 5 men's toilets, plus urinals, 5 women's toilets, we're done with it. And it's one of those simple things that just put in more women's toilets. And I find this is, even at festivals, there's the same amount of men's toilets as the same amount as there are women's. Apart from, actually, I can't remember what I was watching the day, but someone was at a festival and there were more women's toilets. And even she commented on that they put more women's toilets in. So amazing. What was it? It was Leeds Festival. So well done, Leeds Festival, for putting in extra toilets there. Okay, so let's get into some of the stats and facts. I'm going to start with, just because I've mentioned average male and cars there. So the average is, I've lost my point now, I just had this ready. Okay, so the average, this is what people, when it's average sized, it's the average male. It's a 70 kilogram white male with a stay-at-home wife. That is the average man. So most things are built with his, how 70 kilograms height. I did have the height, I just can't find that. Maybe I'll come find it as I go through the examples here that I've picked out. So many everyday products. So I know I've mentioned the car, but even your phone, pianos. How interesting, pianos. That's because of the finger size. So they're supposedly gender neutral. However, because they're based on the average size of the male hand, it makes it difficult for women to use. The average piano keyboard is 1.2 meters long, which makes it more difficult for women to use. They have smaller hands. One study found that the average size keyboard disadvantages 87% of female pianists. So 87% of female pianists are at a disadvantage. They may have injury. They may suffer more with, the carpal tunnel syndrome, and just pain in the hands because the average piano is not built for female hands. Similarly, smartphones are also too large for women to hold and comfortably take photos with one hand. So if you're listening to this and it hurts my finger, and we have to kind of position because they're not built for female hands. They're based on the average male hand. How interesting. So now you know. So when you're holding your phone, it's uncomfortable, and I think they're quite heavy as well. And if I hold my phone for too long, it hurts my little finger. And then just going back to women, the health and safety. So it is 47%. I know I mentioned that at the start. So when a woman is involved in a car crash, she is 47% more likely to be seriously injured and 17% more likely to die than a man. And again, this is because crash test dummies are based on the average man. I know they do have children in the baby seats, but it wasn't until 2011 that they started to actually put in different size crash test dummies. So yes, I know that's 13 years ago. But up until then, and some vehicles now are not actually tested with the average size female. And why is that important? And now think about when you get in the car. When, we pull our seats forward, we might change the steering wheel. If I get into my partner's car and vice versa, there's always that you have to make it comfortable. But the way that women drive in Europe, in the EU, it's considered to be non-standard. So because women use them in a non-standard way, it's because there's no, what's the word I'm after? There's no incentive for them, because it's non-standard, to change it. So rather than thinking, okay, now how do we make this safer for women, the average size woman, okay, they put the steering wheel up, they have it here. They like to, when I've got in my partner's car, I'm like, why is the steering wheel touching my knees? It's the way we drive differently. But because it's non-standard the way that women do that, even though it's 50% of the population, there's no incentive for makers, vehicle constructions, what they call manufacturers, to create that. How crazy. So next time you're getting into your car, bear that in mind, because it is, again, it's significant in how that affects us on day to day. Okay, so we've spoken about toilets, we've spoken about cars. I'm going to pick out some just other fun facts here from daily life as well. Start again. So cars, we use them every day. We've spoken about toilets. Did you also know, a bit of a fun fact here, that in a movie, when you break down how much screen time female actors, we say now, don't we, and male actors get shown, it's only when the female is a lead that they get shown as much as the men, which then also in turn brings in this data gap with pay. So obviously movie stars, they're getting paid a lot anyway, but women do not get paid as much as men. And the reasoning behind this is because then they have less screen time. Interestingly as well, kind of linked to that, men are less likely to buy an autobiography or a book written by a woman, whereas women will buy a book written or an autobiography based on a man. And again, this is all subliminal. This is all things that we've grown up with. Even on self-reflection, when I read this book, I listened to this book, I have, I don't know, maybe 5% of the songs in my phone have female vocalists. The rest are all men. Now, is that because of this gender data gap, or is that just because of taste? I don't know. But I also rarely watch or listen to female podcasts. Ironically, that I am a female with a podcast, but I'd like to dive deeper into that and reflect for myself of why I don't feel drawn. Is it because of the way that the marketing works, or the algorithm? Is that pushing these male-centered podcasters? Who knows? That's a little bit of research for myself there. This was one of my favourite to learn about. Have you ever, as a woman, and I know you have, been in an office, been in a workplace, and it is too cold? It's always too cold. And this is also in most public places. This is the gender data gap. So I've lost my data. 1 second. Okay. This is because the formula to determine a standard office temperature was developed in the 1960s based on the metabolic resting rate of a 40-year-old 70-kilogram man. Just let that sink in. So every time the air conditioning is on, and it's on as standard and we don't control it, this is because it's based on the average 40-year-old 70-kilogram man and his body temperature. Now, the metabolic rate of a young adult female, or female of the same age, is lower. So this means that the formula may overestimate women's body temperatures by 35%, meaning that offices are on average 5 degrees too cold for women. Oh, sorry, I just hit the dog on the head when I clapped my leg then. Sorry, Dottie. So next time you're in the office and it's cold and you need a cardigan, I used to have work cardigans and work blazers because it was too freaking cold. When I go to the mall, it's too cold. I have to take a jacket. It is because they're not based on our own resting temperatures. We don't get as hot as men naturally. So that means when they're pumping out these temperatures, it is too cold for us. But they haven't come up with a happy middle ground here. So it's okay for women to be cold there, but they haven't reflected and gone, okay, how do we make this for an average person? There isn't the maths there. There isn't the data there for an average person. It's just an average man. I love that one because when, people, particularly the men or women, are always cold. Yes, Michael, it's because of the data. We're not the same. We are not built the same. We don't have the same metabolic rate. We don't have the same, heart. We are different. We are biologically different, and it is too cold for us. So you can share that one next time someone says that women are too cold when you're at work. Another context where we rely on studies done on men as if they apply to women is occupational health research. Serious injuries for men at work have been decreasing, while for women they are still increasing. And again, gender data gap, hello. Injuries caused by harsh chemicals that women absorb differently to men. So women absorb chemicals differently to men. We're different biologically. We also have a different hormonal structure. I've spoken about this many times. Our hormones work completely differently. Men have their circadian rhythm. Their hormones are released differently throughout the day. Women have their infradian system. I'll get on to this in a minute when I talk a little bit more about medical. But there's PPE isn't designed for women. So back to 2020 when we were wearing those face masks and we were having to tie knots in the face mask, it's because they're, again, average size male face. Bulletproof vests are not designed to go over breasts. So touch wood, I'll never have to wear a bulletproof vest, but women that do are having to, squeeze into these bulletproof vests because they're not designed for women. They're not designed for women with breasts. Just interrupting this episode to remind you to please like, subscribe, drop 5 stars if you enjoy listening to my podcast. It really does mean the world to me. and also to remind you, you can now watch every episode on my YouTube channel. Head to YouTube, type in Joanne Wealth, and I'll see you there. So this obviously affects more so women who work in male-dominated industries, or industries that are considered, traditionally male. But again, they're not making space for women here. Why isn't there a bulletproof vest that fits over breasts? At the time, obviously I'm reading this from the book, there may be now. I'll get the year of the book, but it's not that old. Okay, so I just checked, it's 2019, so it's 5 years old. So all the facts and figures and stats that I'm giving you today are from 2019. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about women in data for medical trials. Now, I can see from both sides here, because women carry children, and as a woman, if you are looking to carry a child at some point, you may not want to volunteer for medical trials if it's going to affect your fertility. I get that. I really do understand that, which is one of the reasons that we don't have the same data for women. But a lot of cases, they haven't tried, and they often don't select females for trial because of our infradian cycle, because our hormones, and the fact that depending on where we are in our cycle will have an effect on how that medication works. So the medication, the tablets, whatever we're taking, do not actually take that into account, which is another reason that I opt for natural products, because we don't know if we're ovulating how whatever it is we're taking is going to affect our bodies, because no one's ever tested it. They don't know. And the same as, are the side effects going to be heightened when we're bleeding, because we're bleeding, and our hormone levels are so different. So yes, I get that it's difficult, but we need to find a way around that, because women are suffering because of this. So I'm going to share a bit of information. Through studies, we know that men and women are different. Their biology is different, our rhythms are different, our organs are different, our tissues are different, and on a cellular level, we are different. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, we're not just small men. There are so many differences. Our skeletal structure is different. In 100 years' time, when they dig us up, they will know whether or not we were male or female from our skeletal structure, which again links to the way that cars are built and other things that they're not taking into account. Our bone density, we generally have a smaller bone density as women. So women make up just 22% of stage 1 medical trials. 22%. So of any drugs that we take, only 22% of the people in the trial were female. And these drugs will have a very different effect on males and females. Of course they will. The dosage as well. So if I take a tablet, I have the same dosage as my partner, but we're different genders, first of all. So is that okay? Am I meant to take the same as him? He's bigger than me in weight, in physical structure, in muscular structure. I'm also, depending on where I'm at in my cycle, is this going to be safe for me? And we can ask these questions, but there aren't any answers for it. Some researchers arguing that including women in trials, it gives too much variation in the results. And again, just for the reasons I've just said, because of their changing hormones. But is that enough of an answer? Just to say, there's too many variations. It basically too difficult to do. So, we'll just go with what we've got, and women can just put up with it and deal with it as they have been doing for all these years. So women are 70% more likely to suffer from depression than men. Okay, so why isn't the support out there for women if they know that women are more likely to suffer? And why is that? Why are we not looking into that? And linking to, gosh, every time I see some of these facts and stats, brain disorder studies are 5 times as likely to be done on male animals. So when they're studying, so women suffer more from depression, but they do more studies on male animals. Okay, how does that work? Because I'm guessing male, I don't know. I am not a scientist, but why are you only using male? Surely we can take into account the female animals as well. Don't shoot me. I don't know. Women in the UK are 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed after a heart attack and more likely to die during a heart attack than men. A key reason for this is women don't often have chest or left arm pain. Now, how many of you, that's what we look for? Obviously, I'm not looking for a heart attack, but you think chest, arm pain, that is what we're told. But most women don't have that. Have you ever been told that? Because I only know that because of what I've read in this book. I don't see it posted around any hospitals telling me that this is what you need to look out for if you're a woman. So they're typical of a male heart attack. Women are more likely to have stomach pain, breathlessness, nausea, or fatigue. Have you ever seen that posted somewhere? Have you ever seen that this is a male heart attack, this is a female heart attack in the hospitals? I know I haven't. I haven't lived in the UK for 8 years. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but from what memory, I haven't. And doctors don't often recognise these symptoms either in women, so they will be sent away because, I don't know, you've got tummy ache, sorry, you've eaten something that doesn't agree with you, go to the toilet, when in fact you're actually having a heart attack. And again, this book was 2019, and it does actually say, I've copied and pasted, these do not feature in NHS guidelines. So they're not on NHS guidelines as of 2019. How crazy is that? Honestly, this is why I love this book so much. Like, I've just copied facts, gone through and picked out the ones that stood out to me. So I do urge you to go and listen, because there's so many more that will blow your mind. As you can see, they blow my mind. I've read the book, read it and listened to it. Okay, let's continue. So we'll continue with some more about the working day. And I know I've spoken about the working day before. We are not, keep saying, we're not small men. We don't have the same rhythms as men. The 9 to 5, the 40-hour work week is unhealthy. It's unhealthy for women to work more than 40 hours a week. Now, I'm lucky I stepped away from that. So, but I know how it feels. When I was teaching, we were working 50 hours a week, 10 hours a day. You just do it. And then you've got your parents' evenings on top of that. So some days were, oh my God, 12 hours. It's crazy. But it is actually unhealthy for women to work over 40 hours a week. And around the globe, 75% of unpaid work is done by women. So unpaid work is, what have I got down here? So it's between 3 and 6 hours a day. So that is coming home, cleaning the house, doing the chores, looking after children. Women are more likely to drop children off at school. You will know the jobs that you have, that especially if you have children, that extra unpaid work. Women are more likely to basically care for others. And yes, that's within our nature. That's within our energy. We're more nurturing than men. But this is not accounted for in the work week. Now, feminists, don't come at me, don't shoot me. But, could it be that women just have less hours? We have, is it 37.5 hours average work week? In an ideal world, could women work 30 hours a week to make up for that unpaid work that they do? And the fact that they're more likely to be the primary caregiver to children, even in a household where there is a mum and a dad. Just putting it out there. So I'm just going to go through some not so fun facts here that I picked out. Okay, so 90% of women experience PMS, premenstrual syndrome. Yet, researchers are turned down for grants on the basis that it doesn't actually exist. So PMS, in some eyes, doesn't exist, even though 90% of women have symptoms or complain of symptoms. Meanwhile, erectile dysfunction affects 5 to 15% of men, depending on age, and researchers have found a cure for that. So I don't know what else to say about that. We're told that these PMS symptoms that we have are probably not real. They're not, it's just part and parcel of being a woman. You just get on with it. 90% of women just get on with it. But the 5 to 15% of men who have erectile dysfunction, which is a tiny amount of men on the grand scale of how many men there are in the world, there's actually a cure for that and lots of support for that. It's crazy. Women's physical pain is far more likely to be dismissed as emotional or psychosomatic. Now, again, where does this stem from? That we're making it up or it's not real? And why do we have to push to get a diagnosis? I don't know. I'm asking you these questions. Are they rhetorical? Can we answer these? I have no idea. This is why I've said this before, why I love this book, because it highlights these things and we're able to sort of see where in the world and where in our lives that we are affected by this. Just a few more for you and then we'll close this because I don't want to give it all away. Sorry, I'm just scanning through. I picked out, so what I've done is highlighted and I've copied and pasted it into my notes. So I'm just trying to pick out the ones that what I want to share. There's so many. There is so many. Okay, last one. Let's do this last one for today. In the UK, homeless shelters can and do request free condoms from the NHS, but they cannot request free menstrual products. And I can talk about that as well from when I was teaching, the kids had a condom card. And I'm talking about not just the year 11s who were of legal age, but all the kids. And they would just go and get them and blow them up because they didn't need them. And there'd just be condoms all over the floor at school. But we all know about period poverty. And menstrual products are not free. And we cannot help that. We bleed every 28 days. And it's something that they're expensive. Menstrual products can be expensive, especially if you want to buy organic or you want to buy good ones. I have a fact here. Let me just scroll back to it about products. Sorry if you're listening to this. I'm just scrolling. Let me find my fact. So I might not be able to tell you exactly, but here we go. When Always menstrual pads were tested in 2014, they were found to include a number of chemicals that have been identified as either carcinogenics or reproductive and or developmental toxins. So the products that we're using that are advertised for us to use for our menstrual cycles actually include chemicals that can affect our menstrual cycles and probably our fertility. So again, why and how is this still a thing in the world? So I'm going to leave on this question, and I know this podcast episode I've jumped around a little bit with all my fun facts. I urge you to go and read this book for yourself, so that you can sort of get the full picture, because there's so many things I haven't mentioned there. The way that houses are built, the way warehouses are actually positioned, they're closer to work for men than schools for women to take them. And again, the facts and figures are all in there. That's just another one that blew my mind when I was reading and I listened to this book. So go ahead, read it, download it, listen to it, and if you do, please let me know. Please let me know how you feel. Put some comments in. Oh, sorry, I went off on a tangent. Comment, let me know how you feel. Reach out to me, especially if you do download the book yourself, because I'd love to hear from you. Maybe I can do a bit of a follow-up episode. But on that note, I will see you all in the next episode, and thank you for listening.